Good morning and welcome to The Right Expert. I'm Cheri MERZ. Our topic is Your Memoir Now, and my guest today is Carolyn Hamilton. Carolyn, welcome. Let me just let the audience know what a great person you are.
Oh, thank you, Cheri. Keep going.
I will. Carolyn is a multi-genre author, a workshop leader, and success coach for memoir writers. She was professionally trained as an illustrator and graphic designer and has spent over 3 decades working as a marketing executive and copywriter in the real world of Mad Men. When she's not traveling, she lives in Cuenca, Ecuador, and I've got to ask her first thing whether that beautiful scenery behind her is from Cuenca or from one of her travels. Welcome, Carolyn.
Well, thank you, Cheri, and thanks for asking. This is actually the Central Park in Cuenca. All Latin towns have a plaza, if you will. And so this is our Central Plaza. Of course, there's a huge, huge church that's several hundred years old because Cuenca is a World Heritage Site. And it's also a very popular expat community. Lots of writers and artists up here.
I have heard that. I know someone else who has lived in Cuenca, but as much fun as that is to explore, let's get to what our audience wants to know, okay? So our first question for you is, why are people so afraid of what others will think of them if they write their memoir?
That is such a sensitive issue. And it's a good question because I get that a lot from students and clients. And I think it's because, first of all, mankind is a social creature. We are tribal creatures. And that's one of the reasons that right now with this lockdown thing, we're all experiencing some frustrations because this isn't normal for us. We function better in a group. And there are lots of cultures, for instance, where if you offend somebody, then you get kicked out of the tribe, so to speak. I think they did a whole TV show on that. But it's just normal for us to want to be accepted and for who we are and for what we do and accepted into the family, so to speak. And so when it comes to activities and actions that may get us kicked out of the family, we get a little sensitive and a little testy. So the question then becomes, where's the line? And I understand that. And that's going to be different for different people. It depends on how close you are with your family and how much you care about sharing your story with other people, not your family, but other people who can very possibly benefit from your experience. And so I think the memoir writer has to weigh the balance there. Is my story going to help people, and is that more important than Aunt May, who's going to be upset because I misspelled her name? You just never know what people are going to come up with. And the people who you think are going to be the most offended could care less and probably won't even read the book. And the people that you would never even suspect are going to come out of the woodwork and say, why did you say that? Why didn't you say this? You left that out, and get really critical. The other thing about thinking about what other people think is that, this is my take on it, as long as you are truthful and you tell your truth, then you really have nothing to be ashamed of. I had somebody write to me the other day and say, oh, I'm so afraid about offending the people who hurt me. What? Where does that come from? Yeah. There's more going on there than just, oh, I don't, should I tell the truth in my memoir? So there's no hard answer to this question. Each individual author has to come to grips with it themselves.
in your coaching programs, where I know your focus is to help people not only write their memoir but get published, do you offer them some help on how to navigate that decision?
Yes, I do. And it's it becomes actually sometimes more counseling than coaching,
Mhm.
and getting to the root level of why people are, why someone is, of who exactly they're afraid of.
Ah,
Who is it they're afraid they're going to offend?
mhm.
I have a friend who has been writing her memoir for years and hasn't published it. She's not a client of mine, but she has issues with her mother. And she's just still at 60 something, I guess, afraid of her mother's reaction.
Oh,
So basically, she's made the decision and told me this outright: I'm going to wait till she's dead. I'm not doing anything until my mother passes.
wow.
Well, I respect that. That's a qualified decision. And it is what it is. But that's what she's comfortable with, and I support that.
Do you find that people are afraid of being sued?
Oh God, everybody's afraid of being sued. That's such an overrated fear. My basic response to that is bring on that lawsuit, because think of the publicity.
That could get to be some expensive publicity.
Well, the reality is that no lawyer worth his salt is going to encourage someone to spend money on a lawsuit and go after, a coin purse. They're looking for deep pockets.
Mhm.
If every famous author has been sued, J.K. Rowling's, Dan Brown, they've all been sued.
Oh,
And it's one of those things where lawyers are in it to make money. And if there's no money to be made, they're not going to want to go forward with it. Now, having said that, if you have a lot of money and you are hell-bent on suing someone, not necessarily a memoir author, but anybody, and your lawsuit doesn't have a prayer in hell, but you got a lot of money, the lawyer will take your money and see what he can do for you.
uh-huh.
There are lawyers out there who will do that, but I don't think we need to worry about that.
So
I
that's
just, I think
a non-issue for most
it's a
memoirists.
non-issue. It's a non-issue. I just, yeah, I don't know of any memoir writers who have been sued. Now, I haven't really researched that in depth, so there may be some out there. They just haven't come into my world yet, and I'm not aware of them. So if anybody knows of somebody, just let me know. I'd like to know.
Fair enough. So, aren't there too many memoirs out there already?
Well, that's like saying, aren't there too many history books out there already?
Okay. So I had to ask that tongue in cheek, but let's talk about it for our audience.
Well, yes, and so the challenge then for you as the memoir writer is to look at what's already out there. Do your homework on Amazon. Google, let's say you're a victim of child abuse, okay? So Google memoirs on child abuse and see what comes up at Amazon. See what other people have written and read a few of those memoirs. This is homework. And it's also market research, because you need to know if there's a market and who's going to buy your book. And by reading some of those other memoirs, you'll discover what's different about yours, what makes your story different. And it may be that the story is the same, but you handled it differently from that other author, and your results were still good. I mean, you still came out of it a thinking, functioning person.
Mhm.
So the other side of that is that somebody who's looking for information on, let's say, schizophrenia. I have a client whose son had schizophrenia and killed himself.
Mhm.
A very tragic story. people, and I said to him, he happens to be in show business, so he thinks his market is show business people. And I'm saying, no, your market is families who have someone with schizophrenia or a child perhaps who's just been diagnosed with it. And they're looking for information. And they're not just going to buy one book. They're
Right.
going to buy a half a dozen books and read them all.
Mhm.
And your story can be very helpful to some parent who's suddenly faced with this amazingly horrible challenge and has no clue. You know, they're feeling alone. And if nothing else, you can make them feel that they're not alone in the world.
So your focus is really on memoir helping other people. And I've asked this question of other speakers on this event. What is your take on memoir as catharsis?
It can certainly be cathartic. And actually, I do want to correct that, because that isn't entirely my focus. I have another client who's doing a memoir of her travels in the 70s with her husband. They traveled all over the world for about 6 months. And in the 70s, which it was things, you know, travel was different there, and there were no cell phones or anything.
Right.
And yeah, and so that's an insightful personal marital memoir, but it's also a travel memoir. So memoirs don't have to always be about, you know, tragic things. And having said that, going back to the catharsis thing, it can be cathartic. When I wrote, I just finished my second memoir, which is Help, I Married a Comedian, and because I've been married to a stand-up comedian, and there's a very fine line between comedy and cruelty, and I know a lot now about verbal abuse, and I know that our society hasn't come to the point yet where it's as aware of verbal abuse as it is alcohol abuse, physical abuse, child abuse, those kinds of things. And so I wanted to write this book. I didn't want it to be all about how abusive he was, because the reality is, I mean, I stayed in this relationship for 30 years, and a lot of it was good. A lot of it was good. And I wanted to capture that part of it too. And so I basically tried to tell a bunch of funny stories, and then maybe a little poignant story, and then a bunch of funny stories and a little poignant story. So and I'm told from the feedback I've gotten that I did achieve a good balance with that. So I'm really happy about that. But it was a struggle to decide how to present the whole story.
Right.
And in the end, I feel good about how I did it. So that's a kind of catharsis for me.
I love that you brought it to a personal level, because, and forgive me for misstating your focus.
Well, that's okay.
It seems that many memoirs are about the struggles and the tragedy, but there are several kinds of memoirs, aren't there?
Yeah.
Travel memoirs, humorous,
Yeah.
all kinds
Look
of
at
memoirs.
the stories about, I think Dorothy Jackson, was that her name? She was a writer in the 40s and 50s, and anyway, you know, and they were all about her family, but they were little funny stories. Well, there was an author in the 50s, Betty McDonald. I don't know if you remember. She wrote The Egg and I, huge bestseller.
I remember the
And
book.
The Egg and I was a memoir of her first 3 years of marriage to her husband, who I think was a chicken farmer on the Olympic Peninsula in Washington State. So this was in our radar because I was born and raised in Seattle. And I actually, as a kid, went to a book signing at the department store, in the book department there. And she was signing these books. But it wasn't unhappy. It was a wonderful family story of her years on this chicken farm.
I know
So,
someone who calls those pastoral memoirs.
oh,
And
that's a new phrase. I'll have to remember that one.
I love them. I love hearing about people changing their lives completely to something that most people normally wouldn't.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And here's the other thing that gets me so excited about memoir right now is that most people who are writing a memoir are, over 50, shall we say, of a certain age, okay? And let's just the last 50 years. Things have changed so much in so many areas that something you write about that happened 50 years ago is something that may never happen today, because
Right.
today, we have better medicine, we have better communication, whatever. I just think it's amazing.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah,
And,
I totally agree.
and these are the things that are going to provide the visual of what life was like. I think long after videos have changed and that kind of technology's changed. We don't have VHS cassettes anymore, as an example. But books are going to live on forever. I believe that.
Oh, I hope so. I really hope so. So, back to this theme of discomfort about telling the truth and getting sued. I am so sorry for that notification. So what was my question? Should I change names? Should I
Changing names?
Yeah, should I, and along with that, not only names of people, but businesses, etc. Is it okay to use the real name of a business?
Let me go back to what I said before. Always tell the truth.
Okay.
And if you worked at ABC, blah, blah, from certain date to certain date, that's a fact.
Yes.
Nobody can sue you for that.
Right.
I had a question recently about discrimination in this university system. And I think that what I advised the writer was just tell what happened. And you can say, when this happened, I felt discriminated against, or it seemed to me that this might be a moment of discrimination, or I had the feeling that there was some discrimination going on here. You're not saying there was, you're saying you felt it. Okay. And no one can sue you or argue with feelings. And then when you tell the facts about what happened, the reader can decide for themselves if that was truly a situation of discrimination or not. So that's one area there. And I don't see how, let's say this experience happened to you at Notre Dame University, okay? I mean, I don't know where that was never mentioned in this question. But let's say it happened there. You're going to change the name of the university? It isn't going to make, it's just going to take away from the impact of the story if you do that. So I don't believe in changing cities' names, universities' names, businesses' names, but people, yes, you could change people's names unless it's the major CEO of Procter & Gamble. Use his name, because how else are you going to tell this story? Mm-hmm. And then use a pen name. There's nothing wrong with writing under a pen name. And the reality of that is that most people, in our lifetime, we supposedly only meet 600 people, something like that. Those people probably aren't going to be the ones who buy your book anyway. And so the average reader, not your family and friends, is not going to have a clue whether that's that person's real name or not. And they don't care. It's about the story, and it's about your emotions, and it's about what happened to you and how you dealt with it.
Okay, well, I'm reassured. The CEO of Procter & Gamble never discriminated against me personally.
And you know what? That's a good thing to say too, because, for instance, when all this Me Too stuff went on, in my younger days, I was a Playboy bunny. We never had anything like that going on in the Playboy clubs. I was never, no one ever pressured me. No one ever said anything untoward to me. Nobody ever propositioned me. It was all really well organized and above board. So I think it's important to share that there are certain circumstances and certain people who have integrity. And we should acknowledge those people more.
That whole aspect of your life totally fascinates me. And when you told me that you couldn't write a memoir about that because nothing happened, I was intrigued.
Well, but that's exactly what I just said. Really,
yeah.
There's nothing to write about. It's the same thing as they say in fiction. Who wants to read a story about a guy who got up in the morning, got dressed, went to work, did his job, came home, ate dinner, watched television, and went to bed? It's boring. I got up in the morning, I put on my makeup, I went to the club, I did my work, I went home, I had dinner with my husband, I was married. Nothing happened. So there's really nothing. I didn't meet a lot of celebrities. There's just nothing there to write about that I think would be interesting to anybody.
Well, you'll just have to write a novel about what people think happens.
yeah, a murder. But everyone was so nice, I can't even think of who I would kill.
Okay. Well, on that note, I understand you have a gift for us, for our audience. Audience, it will be linked on the button right below this video. So that's how you get it. Carolyn, tell us what it is.
Cheri, the most common question I get from from memoir writers, and I have a Facebook group called Aspiring Memoir Writers, and anyone is welcome to go there and join that. And one of the common questions I get is, where do I start? So I created a workbook called 6 Key Steps to Begin to Write Your Memoir, and it's been very well received. And it's because it's a workbook. Now, it's a PDF download, so that means that you're going to have to download those pages to write on them. Okay. But it gives you something physical to do and to think about, and it also gets you started. So that was my whole purpose in writing and creating a workbook, so that you actually have homework, if you will, that'll get you going.
Okay, and normally that would have been my last question, but I have to follow this up because once you have written your memoir, now what? And I understand that in your programs, you assist people in actually getting it published in one way or another. Am I correct?
Yes. Yes. The first thing they need to do is to decide if they want to be independently published or if they want to go after a traditional New York publisher. So, and that's a whole nother conversation for another time. But everyone's situation is different, and so I try to guide them in the direction that they want to go in and help them prepare for that.
That is fabulous, and we'll have to have you back when we get to that point in the series. Thank you so much for being such a great guest, and for the absolutely perfect free gift for the purpose of this series, How to Get Started. And I look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you, Cheri. This has been great fun. I could stand here all day and talk about memoir writing. And yeah, I have lots of opinions and lots of experience, and I've learned a lot of things the hard ways too. So
haven't we all?
One of the reasons I really like to share what I know I've learned with other memoir writers, so that it won't take them 38 years to write it like it did me. My first memoir took 38 years.
Oh my. Well, again, thank you so much for your generosity in that regard, and we'll see you soon.
Okay, Cheri, bye.
Bye-bye.